In this video, what we're covering is the confusion caused by a green feeder arrow at a traffic light. In the animation, both for the driver of the green vehicle and the red vehicle, they currently have a red traffic light each. A green feeder arrow will appear for the driver of the green vehicle, which means that he has the right of way to turn left through the intersection. What happens though is that for the driver of the red vehicle, he assumes without bothering to check that his traffic light has remained red. He simply assumes that it's safe for him to go because he now sees movement on the opposite side from the green vehicle. There the green feeder arrow appears for the driver of the green vehicle alone, so he now proceeds into the intersection to turn left. However, for the driver of the red vehicle, he sees movement from the green vehicle and now just assumes without bothering to check his traffic light that it's safe for him to continue through the intersection. In the real life clip, we'll see that the traffic light has turned green for vehicles on this side of the intersection, the camera and any vehicles behind him. However, for vehicles on the opposite side, the traffic light is still red. So there's a green feeder arrow, which means that the camera is now safe to turn left through the intersection. However, for this driver here, when he sees movement from the camera, without bothering to check his traffic light, he just assumes that it's safe for him to proceed through the intersection. In the second animation, similar setup. We've got a green feeder arrow, which means that vehicles in this lane are now safe to proceed through the intersection and turn left. But notice that there is the driver of the red vehicle that lags a little bit of a distance behind. So by the time the driver of this vehicle gets closer to the intersection, we'll see that the traffic lights have changed. On this side of the intersection, we've got the driver of the green vehicle with the red traffic light, waiting for the traffic light to go green before he proceeds further. Just stopped it at this point because the traffic lights have now changed. It's amber for the driver of the red vehicle, so he needs to slow down. This vehicle is still safe to make it through the intersection, and for the driver of the green vehicle, the traffic light is still red. Notice that the green feeder arrow has disappeared, so it could either be a case of the arrow disappearing, or if it was a flashing green arrow, it would then change to a solid green arrow. Either one means that the traffic that was turning needs to slow down and come to a halt and give way to any traffic on the opposite side. It's now turned green for both of them, and so this driver is free to go ahead. And so for the driver of the red vehicle, he now needs to give way to the driver of the green vehicle. However, he just assumes that it's safe to go because all the vehicles in front of him had turned left through the intersection. Here we've got the traffic lights, which are red for vehicles traveling in this direction. In other words, the camera and any vehicles behind him. On the opposite side of the intersection, there's a green feeder arrow, which is why we see two vehicles that have already passed through the intersection turning left. However, by the time this driver gets a little bit closer to the intersection, the traffic lights have already turned green for the camera and vehicles traveling in that direction. So he needs to now give way to the camera, and any vehicles behind him would need to do likewise. So it's turned green, which means that he can no longer proceed, as these other vehicles had done, to turn left through the intersection before waiting for any oncoming vehicles to clear. However, he just assumes that it's safe to go because the vehicles ahead of him had turned through the intersection. Doesn't bother to check the traffic light is not in his favor. And the driver behind him does exactly the same thing. You can see this driver almost did the same thing, but just veered away in time. So just be cautious of that. Where you approaching an intersection and there are vehicles that are already turning through that intersection, there's a line of vehicles, then know that the chances are high that the drivers in that line are each going to want to turn through the intersection because they blindly just follow the driver ahead of them. In the third animation, what we have here are two feeder arrows that appear. So for the driver of the green vehicle, the feeder arrow means that he can proceed to turn right through the intersection. For this line of traffic, there's also a feeder arrow, which means that they likewise have the freedom now to turn right through the intersection. But what's being depicted in this animation is that for the driver of the red vehicle, he's in the left-hand lane, so on the far side of the traffic light, so he may not really take note of the fact that when these vehicles now start turning through the intersection, it's because of the feeder arrow, not because the traffic lights turned green for any vehicles wanting to travel straight through the intersection. But he sees the movement of these vehicles and so just assumes that the traffic light is green and then proceeds through the intersection and collides now with the driver of the green vehicle, who does have the feeder arrow, letting him now turn through the intersection. That's what we see in the real life clip. There's the green feeder arrow. So for vehicles in this lane where the camera is, now they're free to go ahead and turn right through the intersection. There's a vehicle traveling in the left-hand lane. He thinks because these vehicles are now turning through the intersection that the traffic light's actually green for him to proceed straight through the intersection, which it's not. Just goes ahead, doesn't bother to check the red traffic light for him, and collides in the intersection. Please like, subscribe, and get notified.